Yo, what's up, my fellow Fiora enjoyers? Bruno Wolf here, bringing you a video about picks and bans, a draft guide, if you will. So bans, obviously, bans are, those lanes that you just feel are unwinnable, things that you don't want to play against. 5 good bans for Fiora are going to be number 1, Malphite. Malphite is just insane in the early game, and he can just poke you to death. And if he decides to go AP, it's actually even more frustrating because he can poke you out of lane and also has a ton of armor, and it's hard to react to his R as well to actually parry him. This is a very good ban. It's just annoying to play against. It's not fun. You will outscale him in the late game, but if you get behind in the early game, it's still going to be very tough, and you're going to be waiting about 30-40 minutes to actually play. The second one I have here is Warwick. Warwick is just the biggest lane bully, and typically you'll see Warwicks, if they lock it into the top lane, it's going to be, barrier, flash, barrier, ignite, something insane like that, and it's very hard to out damage his sustain, especially with his passive. When he gets lower, he actually heals more and has higher attack speed, so outputting more damage, healing more. Typically, you can't really kill him until you have at least 2 items reliably, at least. Number 3 here, I have Quinn. Quinn is just, it's a ranged laner, natural counter. It's very easy for good Quinns will actually E your Q when you're trying to Q into them, which cancels your Q cooldown as well, and makes it very difficult to trade with her. And you can't reliably parry the E either because it's so fast. The reaction time is just out of this world. And also, she can just start roaming at 6, and then if you are running Ignite, you're kind of forced into running like TP into that lane when you want to take Ignite to be able to kill her. It's a bad lane. That's a good ban as well. Teemo is the next one. Teemo used to be my permaban when he got buffed a little while back. Not anymore, but it's just such an annoying lane. The champion doesn't have much value to the team, but in laning phase, especially when you're new to Fiora, the blind is so frustrating, and you can get off 2 blinds in one interaction, and also running into the mushrooms. This champion, sometimes I'll dodge it. I do not want to play the laning phase against Teemo. His shrooms are annoying. His blind is annoying. Stealth, it's a frustrating lane, and it's definitely bannable. And for number 5, we're going to take Kennen here. Kennen is just weird because even if you stun him when he ults you or anything like that, it actually continues to stack regardless. So you might stun him with your parry and then still get stunned in the ulti. He's able to keep range on you. He's got his E, which gives him the movement speed, and you get away from you really quickly. It's a difficult lane. It's not a good time. Now as we hop into the good lanes, Mordekaiser is generally extremely easy for Fiora. Once you have 1 item, you just absolutely beat him. Typically, if a Mordekaiser wants to survive the lane, they're probably going to go Bramble Vest and Ninja Tabbies right off the bat. But if you grab like a Bork Rush or anything like that, you'll be able to kill him very easily. What you're looking for is the quick trades and then backing away. And then if he uses his E, you can actually stun him and then go back in. So you're always looking to use his E as a way to stun. Use your mobility to dodge the Q. And then even if he takes you into the Death Realm, as long as you get that stun off, you'll be able to get the kill quickly. It's easy. Just play with confidence. Play with confidence in that lane. The next lane is Irelia. I'll say Irelia is a very good lane for Fiora. Now, it might feel a little uncomfortable in the first level when she has Q and she gets her stacks up and then has the attack speed, but Irelia works in one way. The only way Irelia is good is if she hits her E, and you have your parry to actually stun her with her E. So her E is the daggers that put down, and then she's able to Q you twice with that, which allows her to build stacks, and that's the scariest thing, is if you get stunned by her. So holding your parry, being ready to hit the parry on the E on her stun. If you can hit that, you will kill her every single time. In this lane, this is another lane that I recommend being confident in. If enemy team picks Irelia, this is a good opportunity for somebody who's learning Fiora to go ahead and lock it in and give it a shot. Number 3, we'll put in Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath is super fun to play against if you are Fiora. If you ever see somebody first pick Cho'Gath just lock in Fiora. Fiora has max HP true damage, and it's scaling, so you'll see, it's so much fun. You'll see Cho'Gath with 8,000 HP and literally be able to kill him in 4 vitals. It's pretty hilarious. It's just a stat check lane, really. The only thing you have to look out for, obviously, is like a flash silence from Cho'Gath, and then maybe him hitting his R. But typically, you can actually use your slide parry on his knockup. It's very telegraphed. It's easy to see. You know that it's coming, and then you can try to slide parry and hit him. Typically, the range is right around the same where you'll be able to actually slide, get the knockup parry, and then stun him, and then get all 4 off really quickly. And Cho'Gath has no mobility. This is a beautiful lane for Fiora, a beautiful lane. Such a good time. Such a good time, to be honest. If you ever see that locked in, go ahead and go for it. Another one, we will toss in Kled. Kled is pretty easy for Fiora, actually. Kled, when he throws his Q at you, you can just wait until it's about to pull back and then stun him with that. And then, obviously, he jumps off and it can be a little bit annoying, but once he jumps off, he has nothing to play with. So this is a lane where you have a lot of diversity. You can go Bork, you can go Stride, you can go Gore, you can go Divine. It really doesn't matter. This is a lane that's going to be very easy for Fiora to win. There's no worry in that lane whatsoever. Just stun him every time that he uses his Q. Look for patterns. He might try to dash through you when you go to parry. But regardless, he doesn't really output enough damage that it's worrisome. He typically will build like Black Cleaver, Titanic, those types of items, and it's just more HP than anything. With the max health true damage that you do, it'll be an easy lane as well. And I will say, for number 5, Ornn. Ornn is quite common, and Ornn is very easy for Fiora as well. So you can actually, when Ornn uses his Brittle Breath, and you see the indicator over your character, when he goes for that auto attack actually moves Fiora, which can be used as a parry. His ulti can be used as a parry to stun him, and so can his pillar. So when his pillar comes up, you can actually stand on it and use that as a way to stun him as well. So it might be a little annoying in the beginning because he is pretty tanky and he could grab Bramble Vest, but after literally one item, if you have Mythic versus Mythic, you win. You win every time. So if you ever see Ornn locked in, go for it. So now we're going to move on to the skill matchups. These are the more fun lanes. This is where you can really test your skills on Fiora. If you ever see somebody lock this in against you, be ready for a fun lane. It's going to be a blast. First one I'm going to say is Riven. Oh, Riven is one of my favorite lanes. Riven is a blast. Riven is fast-paced. The best thing that I could say to help you is try to stun the 3Q, which is when she does the flip and she lands on you. It's the easiest one to stun. The W is very inconsistent. It's not really worth it. You want to try to get the stun off the Q and always play off her E. Always try to take trades after she uses her E because it's her most mobile ability and she'll be able to run away from you, typically using her E. But if she has used her E to go in, almost think of it like Ezreal. If she E's in towards you, either she's looking for an all-in, and if you can avoid all that damage, her cooldowns are quite high in the beginning, and then go for those trades and then try to get those kills and get that early lead. Typically, this is a lane that whoever wins that first or second solo is going to probably snowball the game. Next, we'll move on to Darius. Darius is, I just made a matchup guide about this matchup. A lot of people get afraid of this matchup and don't have a lot of confidence in it. You'll see that most Darius are going to run double aggressive sums. So you see Ghost and Flash, or maybe Ghost and Ignite, or Flash and Ignite. You always want to play Ignite into Darius to stop the healing from his Q, but to also put pressure on him and to be more of a force in the lane, right? So having Ignite will help you stay alive, because if he goes for the Ghost and you just Ignite him, there's a good chance that you'll actually be able to out-damage him. What you're looking to parry is typically you never parry the Q. Never parry the Q, never parry the Q. Just never. If you parry the Q, it still gives him the heals, and it doesn't. It's bad. It's bad. Always try to parry the W or the R. They're bigger animations, and they will slow his attack speed as well. But if you're really good and you got those quick reaction times, you can typically keep out of range and actually stun with the E when he tries to pull you in, because it does make a decent little pool animation, and it gives you a little bit of time to actually go for the parry. In this lane, I recommend going for pokes and trying to get like top front-facing vitals, top-facing vitals, bottom-facing vitals, anything that's you're available to get with a max range Q, and then run away. And then once you feel comfortable around that 60%, 75% HP range on the Darius, go for the all-in. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. For number 3, we've got Jax. Now, Jax can be looked at as a really awful lane, but I think that it's more of a skill matchup. So I've actually made a matchup guide for this one as well. The biggest thing here is your parry to his E. So his E is counter strike, and you can stun him off of it. He can recast it after 1 second and hold it up to 2 seconds. Your parry lasts 0.75. So if you always count to 1 and then parry, the only way that he would stun you is if he held it for that last quarter of a second. Or you can go 1 and then some change and then throw out the parry, and it makes a smaller window. So you're always looking to stun him off that, but if there's any way that you can actually move out of the way of the E and then use your parry to slow his attack speed, Jax is completely based off of attack speed, and he's got pretty high cooldowns on his E in the early game, so if you can ever get a stun or be able to dodge the E, you've got about a 13-second window at level 1, and then it will scale down to about 8, but during the late game, it gets a little bit more tricky, and I'd say that you want more damage in this lane. One of my favorite things to do is actually take Bork and then Frozen Heart right afterwards, and then Mythic Third. This will slow his attack speed, but also give you a lot of dueling power with the Bork, and I think that that's super solid against champions like Jax and Tryndamere and anybody who relies on attack speed. For number 4, we're going to throw out Camille. So, Camille is pretty tough because she actually scales really hard into the late game. She's got both her and Fiora have a lot of kill pressure in lane. The deciding factor really comes down to parrying the hook shot, or it's parrying the hook shot or parrying the ulti. Those are your two things that you want to go for. Now, good Camille's are actually going to miss their hook shot on purpose to try to bait your parry. You really need to be paying attention to where that hook shot is going. Something that I really like to do is to give them no option at all. You can actually slide parry into Camille's hook shot when she's on the wall, and she's forced to use that against whatever enemy or champion that is within that circle when she's on the wall, so she automatically gets stunned. She can't get out if you slide parry into her when she hook shot into the wall. A big thing to look out for, though, is obviously getting hit with the W, the sweep, because that will heal her, and also looking out for her passive. Keeping track, actually clicking on the character model of Camille and being able to look in your top left corner and see when her passive is up, what's the cooldown on it, because she'll be able to trade with you very easily with just an auto and a Q, get her passive up, and then you're stuck with a 200 HP shield that you got to get through before you can actually do damage to her, and then she'll win the trade every time. But in this lane, after if you can get a lead, then you can definitely beat her throughout the game. But this is a skill matchup. It's the same thing as Riven. This is a very fun lane, but at the same time, you got to be careful. You got to be careful and not give her the lead, because she does low key. Sounds crazy, but she outscales Fiora. She outscales Fiora if she when she has the lower cooldowns and her 2Q does half your HP bar. It can be sketchy if you let her get a lead. So definitely want to be careful in the laning phase. But it's a fun one as well. For number 5, this might come off a little bit. Some people will think differently. I think that Sett is a skill matchup. Now, Sett did just get buffed, but I still think that it's very winnable for Fiora. The biggest thing is his cooldowns are very long. You can actually allow him to stun you with the E. If you get used to his patterns and how he does it, you can look for a proactive parry and try to look for patterns and go for that E. There's also ways to play mind games in this lane, though. Imagine his R, he's trying to throw you. Something that I like to do is, if I ever get the chance to just he misses an E or something like that, I will actually ult him and then try to go left, top, right vital. Imagine the tower on this side. I know that he's going to try to throw me right there, and if he doesn't, then I can just parry and then Q down instantly into the rock in the top lane. And then the best thing that I notice for Sett matchup for the R is I don't want him to throw me anywhere. When he uses his ulti, I want him to be ulting me to a wall. To a wall that's very close to us, so I don't go flying into a place that I don't want to be. I'd rather get thrown just a very small distance straight into the wall, and then I can react quickly afterwards. The biggest thing really that does the most damage is just dodging the W. Now, usually I'll save parry for the W if it comes down to it, but you much rather parry the Q. His Q is his attack speed, his empowered auto attacks, and when he has Bork, he can absolutely one-shot you. And to use the W and to slow his attack speed by 50% for 2 seconds is way better than parrying the W, because you should be able to use your movement speed to dodge the W. Now, parrying his W, his true damage, it should be a last resort. You should always be trying to use your Q. And this it's one of those things that's like wired in your brain the wrong way, and you got to kind of like play with it a bit. You want to Q into him, Q into it. So if he pulls you with the E and then tries to hit you with the W, don't Q backwards, don't Q to the left or the right, Q behind him and dodge it entirely. And then use your parry and slow his attack speed, and then go for the all-in. You have to kind of think about it and be like, I need to get away and not Q backwards and try to run into it. So always try to get away from the W. This is another one of those fun lanes. It can be very annoying in the early game, but as you scale, you will outscale him, you will do more damage than him, and you will be able to kill him. So now we're going to look at just some bad matchups. So obviously we have the bans, but we have bad matchups as well where it's like, okay, these are kind of playable, and it's not that bad. There's only a few. In these bad matchups, they're not impossible, but some of these are ban worthy as well. There's a few of them, but you can definitely win these lanes once you get a better understanding of them and how to play against these champions. With Jayce, you obviously want to avoid his empowered poke, his empowered Q, the big shock. That's going to do a ton of damage. Now, obviously, I'm always looking to parry his knockback, which is his E and melee form. It has typically you'll see the auto animation and then come back to the auto reset, and then he'll use his E and that'll stun him. Now Jayce is going to be very squishy, he's going to build mostly damage. So if you ever get the stun, it's an easy kill. You just don't want to do any. He's going to do quick bursts of trades. If you can parry most of it, or at least avoid the empowered Q, and then he goes in, then you could probably kill him and just go for the all-in. Then make sure that when you look at the Jayce lanes, look at the cooldowns on his abilities. They're actually very high. Number 2 here, I'm going to take Akshan as a bad matchup. This is one of the most annoying lanes. It's very tough. I don't think it's not like he outscales you or anything like that. You'll definitely be able to kill him in the late game when you find him, but he's got invisibility. He has an escape. He's got strong early game presence. He's got a shield. This champion is just very, very frustrating. Very frustrating. Another lane where I would take second wind in Doran's shield and just try to survive the lane. In these bad matchups, all you really want to do is come out even, and you should be fine. Try to get your jungler, get vision. Try to get your jungler to get some ganks on this guy. The best thing that I can say for this lane is when he uses his E, try to get in front of him, and it will actually make him fall off of it. So if he throws his E into the wall, you can actually run to him and stand in front of him on the direction that he's going, and he'll have to hop off, and that's when you're looking for the all-in to get the kill. For number 3, I would say Wukong is a very tough matchup. Not impossible, but definitely very hard. This lane, typically you want to just parry the E when he dashes towards you. The most ideal parry is going to be actually using the parry when he uses Q with his clone out, so the double Q, because he actually in his kit will get a lower cooldown on his Q for every auto attack or every auto attack his clone uses. So if they both hit you with a Q and then they start auto attacking you, he's going to get that Q back right away. Now if you're ever able to hit the parry on the double Q from him and his clone, it'll slow his attack speed by 50% for 2 seconds, which will stop him from auto-attacking you. It'll slow down that CDR on his Q so that he can use it again, and then you can look for the all-in. Now, obviously, after 6, it gets a little bit tougher because you don't really want to stun him on the first R. You kind of want to just take that, and then on the second R, you can actually get out of his range, and then if he's like following you while using his R, you can slide parry back into him on the second R, stun him, and then go for the all-in and get the kill. This can also just be a really frustrating lane because you can use his clone to get away. You don't want to ever use your R on his clone. Make sure that you're R'ing him after his clone is down. The clone has a very long cooldown. You want to bait that out before you go for any all-ins. This one is going to be a little tough. My last bad matchup here, I'm going to throw in Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger is just absolutely the worst lane for Fiora by far. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even going to talk about this lane. What I'm going to tell you to do is don't ban him. Don't ban Heimerdinger. But if you have to, if the enemy locks Heimerdinger to counter your Fiora, consider dodging. It is not fun. You will not have a good time. It is one of the most doomed. It's definitely worth a dodge. If you have not used your dodge, go ahead and dodge. It is the most doomed Fiora matchup. Literally, if you have to play it, my biggest my biggest tip: D-shield, second wind, and rush them all. Like literally rush them all. Rush them all. Get a Hex Drinker and Merc Treads, and you have to build for this lane. It is the most frustrating lane. This is not something that I would recommend banning because not enough people play it, but if you see it, it might be worth it to dodge. So guys, this is the video, the draft guide video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this helps some of you new Fiora players out there, and some of you guys who are trying to learn what to ban, who to lock Fiora into, and I hope this also helps some of the OTPs as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.